Okay, so today we're going to be doing something exciting. I'm going to show you some quick ways to make some interesting infographics. I'm going to keep it really simple. We're going to be looking though at creating infographics for social media. Let me get everybody in here. Social media and for print. So if you've got questions along the way, because I'm going to be sharing my screen, apparently I'm not going to be able to show the chat feature, and so if you have a question, just go ahead and pipe up, unmute yourself, and go ahead and ask your question if you would, please. That would help me out a lot. Okay, let me go ahead and I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to get started here. Here we go. Alrighty. Okay, so basically this is going to be really simple here, guys. So, but I know I might go a little fast, but remember this is recording, so you can always go back and watch it again and slow it down and pause where you need to. Okay, so the first step in creating an infographic is knowing your end destination. Because how you build something for print and maybe with your materials isn't necessarily the same way that you would save something for like Facebook or Instagram. So I'm just giving you some really easy parameters to think about here. For print, you're probably either going to be using like an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, like a letter size piece of paper, or maybe a half-page sheet, like a 8.5 and 5.5, or maybe an 8.5 or 4.25. So similar to how you would build a postcard, where you're not just going to create a file and hope for the best. This is going to give you hang on, I got it. All right, this is going to give you a good working process. So knowing what you're going to be doing in the end and knowing how you're going to be printing something, if you are printing something, that really is ideal. If you are going to be doing Facebook, know that Facebook prefers, although I have, in my research, it looks like they're not as stringent maybe as they used to be, because it kind of looks like an everything goes type of situation where you post something and it figures out how to include most of it, if not all of it. So best practice though is to go ahead and do something that's a 4:3 ratio. Really easy way to do that is by creating something that's 4 inches by 3 inches. And that would be 4 inches wide by 3 inches tall. And we'll get into that whole thing in a few minutes here. For Instagram, that prefers a square format. So if you're going to be doing something that's a 4:3 ratio on Facebook, maybe you want to do a 4:4, 4 inches by 4 inches to create an Instagram version of that. Okay. So once you figure out what size you're doing, and you can easily create like the same thing for this that you're doing for this and you're doing for this. You just need to save it in a couple different ways. Okay, the number 2 is you're going to decide on your stats. So some people, a good way to do this is to just figure out what you want to post and when, kind of look at a schedule. So if you know that you're going to be posting every month, like on Facebook, what the median sales prices were for 3 areas in your area, then just do that and stick with that process. And then once you create the template once, you're just basically replacing the data. Make it really easy for yourself. Same thing with like your print version of like your mailers. If you're going to be doing something like sending out a postcard with some stats, just do the same 3 stats every month or 6 stats or whatever you're doing, but just replace the data so you're not having to reinvent the wheel. Those are just some ideas for you. And then you're going to decide on your visuals. And for your visuals, that might include any of your brand imagery. So if you have like a background in your brand, like here we've got a copy of let's see here. So just like a wood background, that might be the part of that person's brand. So if you want to create a graphic that ties in with your brand, this is a really great way to do it. If you are using fonts that are similar to what you've got in your brand, or the same that you've got in your brand, even better, do that. Brand colors, maybe even including your logo, maybe area imagery or real estate general imagery. We're going to talk a little bit about imagery on our call here today too. So whatever you want to pull together, just kind of be thinking about all these things. It's kind of like your checkbox. So I'm not saying that you have to do all of these things for every piece, but just kind of figure out what is your process. So every month when you do the median sales price graph, let's say you do that, what is the imagery that's going to go along with that so you've got some similarity? Okay, and I'm just going to show you just a couple of different examples here, just really quick, and then we'll get into really the meat of it. So here's one. Here's one that's just using very simple colors, very simple fonts, one little graphic here. But the key is really to keep it as simple as possible when you're dealing with, like, especially an online infographic. Here's just a version of an image with just a semi-transparent white box on the front of it. So keeping it really, really easy. And then here's an example of a similar background. So two different versions, two different types of content. So we've got the metal background for one type of infographic, and then we have another one for a different type of infographic. But you can see how these are similar, so this might be consistent with somebody's brand. Okay, now a couple of just like good practices. So this is an example of another one. And this is really easy. 18 condos have gone under contract in the last 24 hours. If you just wanted to throw something random out there, that's a kind of a cool way to do it. So let's go through this a little bit. So number one, you're going to have, with an infographic, you want to keep the stat large. You want to, you know, if you think 36 point font is good, 48 might be better. So don't be afraid to increase the size to really make it pop. So that's key number one. Make something large and attention grabbing. Key number two is you're going to use a background or an icon as your punch. You don't have to use both, and actually it's probably better that you don't. So what are you going to use? Are you going to use a photo in the background, or are you going to use like kind of an icon to give it some visual interest? And then another key is to really know what your local MLS's rules are in terms of attributing data. So if they've got a rule, and I don't know what our MLS rule is, so that might be something that you check with your managing broker about, because managing brokers sometimes often have different rules too. Like they may require you to use the company logo on an infographic piece like this. So just check with them on that. But find out from your MLS what are the rules for attributing data. Like if on a printed piece, like for our MLS, you've got to say information is derived from Northwest MLS. But in the case of a social media post, is it okay to just have that in the body of the body of the post, or do you have to have it on the graphic itself? I actually don't know the answer to that, so we'll have to find that out. Okay. So now once you kind of have an idea here of what stat are you going to be doing, graphically, how are you going to convey that? How are you going to keep it interesting? Then you can go ahead and build your piece. So let's go ahead and move over, and I'm just going to do this in Publisher, but you can easily do this in InDesign or whatever program you would like. Let me go ahead. I'm going to open a new document here. And I'm just going to open a blank page size just to get us started. Okay. Alrighty. Okay, so remember I talked about the different sizes. So let's start off with the social media sizes, because those are actually going to be the easier ones to do. And remember, for Facebook, I talked about doing a 4:3 ratio. And for Instagram, I talked about doing a square, like a square ratio. So in this case, let's go ahead. I'm just going to go ahead and change this page size, and let's just do it for a, let's do 4x4 for Instagram. So all I do is I go to my size, I choose page setup, and I'm just going to change my size to 4 inches by 4 inches. Okay. So now you can see here on your ruler, there's 4 inches by 4 inches. Okay. And for this purpose, I'm just going to keep it really simple, and I'm just going to go ahead and use a solid color background, and then we're going to pull in an image. So to create a solid color background, one way you can do that is to go to Shapes and just choose a shape, draw your shape, and I've got all my webinar controls that are in my way. Okay. And I'm going to get rid of my outline color. Okay, so we've got the blue as the default color, but if you knew your red, green, blue setup for your brand, let's just say, you can go ahead and insert it here. And in this case, I'm just going to pretend that it's a, you know, kind of a nice orangey kind of color. And so you can see here your RGB setup is 233, 116, and 19. And so if you knew what your RGB setup, you could do it that way, or you could insert, let me actually show you something. If you inserted like, hang on. Let's say you inserted your background, and I'm just going to put this in here just to grab this color to show you. Okay, so all I did was I copied that background image. So if you had your own background image and you weren't sure what your RGB build is, you can easily take your shape here, go to your shape fill, and choose sample fill color. And then when you select that, it gives you that RGB makeup. Then if you wanted to find out really what was that, so you could reference that for the future, you go back to shape fill and choose more fill colors. There's your RGB build right there. So if you were building any other color or any other shape anywhere else and you needed to know that, that's how you find that out. So let's do the same thing if we wanted to change it to turquoise, the turquoise color. Simply just go back to your fill color, sample fill color, sample that color. And there you go. So we're going to do this one in this lovely turquoisey color. Okay. So let's say we're going to be doing median sales prices. So next thing you're going to do is just go ahead and type in what you're looking at. You're looking at median sales prices. And in this case, we're going to say that my font is Avenir. This is nice. You know, whatever your branded font is, you would use that instead. Okay, and just for the heck of it, I'm just going to go ahead and start playing around with size. I'm going to make this, remember, size is important here and keeping it simple is important here. So we're going to go change that to white. We're going to, let's make that even a little bit bigger. Median sales, let's call it price. And what area are we looking at? Let's just say we're looking at Issaquah. Might do that centered. And you can fiddle around with this, I mean, for a long time, but we're just going to do some simple things here. Still going to make this a little bit bigger. And actually I want to make Issaquah really big. Even bigger. Okay, that was too big. All right. All right, so now we've got our median sales price, Issaquah, and we're just going to pretend like I already looked this up in the MLS, and I'm going to say it's 750. I have no idea if that's the right number or not. I'm just saying that that's what I am pretending it is. And you might want to do a comparison for this year, for the last year. Okay. Okay, so that's okay. It's a little boring though, isn't it? So let's go ahead, let's talk about graphics. Okay, so graphics, you know, you see these infographics and you see these little icons, and getting the icons may seem a little bit overwhelming because when you go to do a search online, it may or may not, what you're seeing isn't necessarily what you can insert into here. So let me give you some tips. So if you go to stock photo sites, like iStockPhoto, Shutterstock, there's a lot of different stock photo sites out there. Sometimes that you can pay per image, sometimes you're buying a pack of images, so it's kind of up to you. But what's neat is that you can actually buy images, licensed images for not only the icons, but even if you wanted to do something for the background, like if you wanted to create like that little house money idea thing for the background, you can easily do that with when you buy stock photos. So in this case, I just went to iStockPhoto or iStock.com. No, it's iStockPhoto.com. And I just typed in real estate icon. And you can see here, I mean, there's so many icons that you can choose from. And this is just like page 1 of like 533. So my rule of thumb for stock photo searching, by the way, is I don't search for more than 10 pages. If I can't find what I want in the first 10 pages, I'm probably not going to find it. So don't waste your time. So look at the first 10. And what we're looking at here are two things. We're looking for an icon that, first of all, is going to tell the story that you want to tell, but that also is going to be easy and impactful to when you pull it into Publisher. So you'll see here a lot of these are like outlines. I don't really want outlines. What I want is more of a solid look like this. But I do want a full sheet of them because that's going to give me the most bang for my buck. So I don't want any of the solid one or the outline ones here. I'm looking for something more like this type. I'm looking for something more like this type here, because that's solid. It's two colors, but it's still solid. Or maybe like this type here. So once you find a couple that you like, and what I like to do is I just like to right click and just kind of create a bunch of tabs here, and then I kind of filter down from there. Okay, so in this case, what I found was this sheet here. I found that this actually told the story that I wanted to tell. I was thinking about median sales price. I was thinking about maybe talking about buyers, sellers, inventory. So I felt like this sheet did a good job. Let me show you what another one that was more problematic that I had downloaded before. So I think this is actually kind of interesting. So in this case, a lot of you may have some of these icons in your branded materials that we've created for you at this point, but we've done a lot of work on our end to clean these up. So some things that you can see here that would be problematic to pull into Publisher. They've got this shadow thing going on. They've got an outline going on. They've got this other gray background going on. So those things are going to be problematic when you try to work with this. So you want to keep it as simple as possible. So if you found another version of this, and oftentimes what artists will do is they will create like maybe 5 or 6 different sheets that are similar. So they might actually do the work of like getting rid of that background and making this more simple. They might keep the colors, and the colors are okay, but you don't want to have any of this like gray gradient right here. You don't want to have any shadows. You don't want to have another outline. You just want to have a very, very simple icon. So hopefully that makes sense. Anybody got a question about this? Okay, I'll keep going. Okay.
Hey, Shauna, this is John. I got a quick question.
Yeah.
So when you get this sheet, how do you cut them apart to make them transparent so they fit on there instead of like a white background?
Yep, I'm going to show you.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. So in this case, what I did was I went ahead and I already bought this yesterday. And you can see here you've got different types of ways that you can buy it. Unless you have Adobe Illustrator and you can actually separate out a vector file, you don't want to buy an EPS file. You're not going to be able to open it. You can kind of open it, but it might not work quite as the way you expect. So in this case, what I would do is I would recommend that you download the XXL file, because what this is going to do is it's going to download just a flat copy of this file. So when you get it, it's going to look like this. Okay, so this is just a JPEG. It's taken one image of the entire thing. All right, so now that we have this file, we're going to move it into Publisher. Okay, so I can get rid of that. Okay, so now I'm back into Publisher. And to get that image in there, I'm just going to choose Insert Picture. And I'm going to go to my desktop here and find my infographics and insert it. Okay. Now you're going to see it inserted the whole page. Well, we don't really want the whole page. We really just want one image. So what we're going to do is I've chosen, I'm going to use this guy right here, this little house with the money thing for the median sales price. So what you're going to do is first you're going to crop. You're going to crop that entire image down so only this guy is showing. Crop. Okay, you see I've got this white background here, which I'm going to get rid of in just a second. But first what I want to do is I want to make this a little bit bigger. And because I downloaded the Excel version of this, the XXL, the biggest one you got, that's going to help me when I blow this up a little bit, because if I downloaded a version that was not as large as this, it would have been a little fuzzy by the time you blow it up. So not everything is going to work out quite like this. Okay, and my scale is off here a little bit. I'm going to adjust that in just a second. All right, so here's the trick. Check this out. Okay, so I've got my picture selected, and when I have my picture selected, my picture tools ribbon pops up here, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to set my background as transparent. So I set my transparent color, and I do that by getting rid of the white. Now, this is why this whole grayscale thing, the whole shadow thing in the background doesn't work very well for this kind of image, because when you do this transparent background piece, it's looking for only things that in this case are that color. So in this case, it's white. You might even be able to see that I've got a slight outline around my gray area, and that's because those pixels are just a little bit different. But it's not going to really matter when I change this to white in just a second. Okay. So now that I've gotten rid of my background, now I can change this to whatever color I want. Check this out. So I'm going to go back into recolor, and I'm going to choose more variations, and you can choose white right there. Isn't that awesome? Now, let's say you didn't want this white. Let's say in this case, because remember we brought in those other branded colors earlier, and here they are here. Now, this is not going to be what you're going to want to do, because it's not, well, when I change this to orange, it's going to vibrate in a weird way that you wouldn't want, but I think it's still important to show you how to do this. Now, you may notice here that the orange that came in is not the same really bright orange that was this color, right? And that's because, let me go back, this is not black. If this was really black, it would give us the highest saturation of the color that you're trying to change it to. So what you need to do, what you can do first is change this to black by taking your brightness down to 0. See, now that it's black, now when I choose recolor, and now I can choose that, whoa, that's like some bad vibration right there. But that's how you change it to like that really rich, saturated color that might be part of your brand. Okay, that was a lot. So does anybody need me to clarify any of those points? All right, cool, moving along. Okay, now I am going to change this to white because it's going to give me a headache if I keep it this color. So let's change it back to white. All right, and I'm just going to do a little bit more finessing here. I'm going to adjust my space between lines. I'm going to take that out. And actually, I got to put the date in here. So let's go March 2020. And I'm just doing this really quick. I would really be doing a lot more finessing on this if I was really doing this for real, but I just am trying to get this done quickly and not in a tedious way for you guys. So let me March. Okay. And let's pretend that's all there is. Okay. So now that our rough infographic is done, and I probably should have saved that, but let's do that now. So now it's going to be a matter of how are we going to be saving this for online, okay? And so all you have to do once you've got the publisher file saved, you're just going to go File, Save As, and then you're going to choose. You can either choose JPEG or PNG file. And I'm going to give you an illustration of the differences in just a second here, which you may or may not be able to see the nuances of, but this will be interesting to try this on your own computer. So in this case, let's change that to median sales price, March 2020, Issaquah. And so when I save it as a JPEG, I've got these different resolutions. So you may want to save it as the 96 dots per inch. However, I made this a little bit smaller than I normally would have. So I actually think that I want to save this a little bit larger. And there's a whole lot of philosophy and testing and things like that that you may want to do on your end. But in my experience, I like to save it a little bit higher than the 96 as the default for a couple of different reasons, but mostly because I've seen what the crispness factor is, and this is a better fit for me. So let's save that, save it. Okay, now let's go to the sample. So this would be the piece that you're posting online, and you may be able to see this is a little, not quite as crisp as I would like. So let me show you. I've saved a sample at 96 dots per inch, at 150 dots per inch, 300 dots per inch, and then as a PNG file. So let me, I don't know if you're gonna be able to see the difference, but I think it's interesting to see. So if I double click on this, this is the size, this is the maximum size that this piece should be. So it's not, when you click on this like in your social media and you look at it, this is as big as it's ever going to be. So it's not huge, it's not fantastic. So that's why I prefer to go a little bit bigger, because that allows somebody to be able to click and view it. Okay, see how this is a little bit bigger? So that would be, that's the 150 dots per inch. And then this is the 300 dots per inch. I personally like the 300 dots per inch, but don't tell the others. File size sometimes is a big deal, but when you let Facebook figure it out, that's my preference. Anyway. Okay, and then let's show, this is the PNG file. I don't know if you can see between this and this, it's just a little bit crisper. When I save something out of the MLS, I'm saving it as a PNG file because that text is just a little bit crisper than if I saved it as a JPEG file. So to recap, I probably would be saving this as a 300 dots per inch PNG file, but shh, don't tell my other designers because they told me to do 96, but I just don't like it. So, okay. So now that I've got this done, now what you can do is you can do a file save as. In this case, you can do the Facebook version. And remember, that one's going to be a 4:3, so I'm going to change my page design size to 3 inches tall by 4 inches wide. And then you're just going to need to adjust your artwork a little bit to accommodate that. So you just kind of move everything around until it was visually pleasing. And basically just follow the same steps. So that's how you would do, yeah.
Do you have to do that? Can you put a square photo on Facebook?
In my experience, you can put a square photo on Facebook. I was advised by my team that sometimes if you're looking at something in the news feed that is a square, it'll cut off the top and the bottom. I have not necessarily experienced that same visual chopping that happens, but if you didn't want to run the risk of having some things chopped off, that's a thing.
Yeah, I think it cuts it off if you put two photos together for sure.
I do too.
But if you just have one, I think it shows it. So
I think so. Yep, Amanda, I'm with you. Okay, so I'm not going to spend the time finessing this little guy here. I think that you guys have kind of got this idea. So now let's go ahead and go over to print, because I want to show you an easy way to create a print version. Okay. So in this case, again, start with how you want the end result to look. So if this is, let's say you wanted to bring something into an open house and you're not necessarily setting up anything for mailing and you're You're kind of just trying to create a one-sided printed piece that tells the story of what's going on in your market. Using something like your calendar template, or if you've got something that's a horizontal template, that's my preference, but you can easily do something that's vertical as well. So if you have your calendar template up, basically all you're doing is just getting rid of all your calendar stuff. Changing your title. Maybe this is Market Watch. You can fill that space in however you need, whatever is right for what your brand has got going on. You could change your date, March 2020. And again, you would finesse this a little bit to work with your brand. But now let's say you've got a couple of different data points that you're wanting to bring in. And I just use this just as a starting point. Because let's pretend like I already had my active listings. And so you can easily, create a square, rectangle, whatever. And again, here to my outline, that's how you get there. Let's get our orange going on, or magenta, or whatever, not magenta, aqua. Okay, send that to the back. Oops, send this all the way to the back. All right. And we're gonna pretend that I've already got my image, my little icon guy already selected. And what you'd want to do actually is, if you've got the squares going on, what you'd want to do is figure out how many data points are you looking at and work backwards from there. So let's imagine I'm using 5, okay? So I'm going to put 5 boxes. I'm going to just copy and paste 5 boxes here, and yes, they're not going to be perfect. You can see here that they're already going to be too big. Okay. So now we need to use some of the tools that Publisher has to get these boxes the way we want them. So what you do is I've got 5 boxes now. So I'm going to select all of my boxes by hitting Shift and click. And so I'm selecting them all. And now I'm going to align them at the top. And then I'm going to distribute them horizontally. So that way they're all spaced evenly. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to group them. And I'm just going to squeeze them together so I'm going to 1/4 of an inch here and 1/4 of an inch here. And then I'm going to ungroup them and I'm going to send them to the back. Okay, so now I've got my bars set up the way that I want them. Did everybody get that? Anybody miss anything?
Can you do that one more time slower?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. So in this case, I'll do another one. All right. Let's make them not so big. Okay. So I'm going to make, in this case, because I know I want to look at 5 data points, I'm basically just going to paste 5 of these bars. Move that over there. I'm going to move these guys over here. Just kind of put them approximately where you spaced how you want them. Based on about how much white space is between. Okay, so now I've got my 5 boxes, but they're larger than the page size that I have. So I need to make sure that they can fit on this page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Shift and click to select them all. I'm going to align them to the top or bottom, whatever, they're all the same size. And then you're going to distribute horizontally, and then you can see that made all the little white boxes in between, all the white spaces in between, the same. So now these are all spaced out correctly. But now I've got to squish them to get on the page, and to squish them, I want to squish them all equally. So I've got them all selected. I'm going to choose Group. And then I'm just going to take my side here, pull that in to 1/4 of an inch on this side. And take this one, I'm going to pull that one 1/4 of an inch in on this side. And then I'm going to send them all to the back, and then I'm going to ungroup them. So now I have my 5 equal bars across the page.
Thank you.
You bet. All right, and then I've got my little icon there. And you could remember, Publisher actually does a pretty good job of helping you out in terms of like lining things up. So I don't know if you can see this, but as I am moving my little icon around, it's giving me these little pink prompts as to where to align this. So this is saying, okay, look, now this is lined up equally or centered on this orange bar right here. If I moved it over here, you can see it snaps into place on there too. So that's kind of handy. All right. So I'm just going to space my guys out here a little bit. Actually, I want to pull that in just a smidge. Okay, and I want to make my active listings line a bit bigger, and I want to change that to white. So I'm just going to make that white. I'm going to bump this up to 18, maybe even 20. Here the icon's doing is being most of the focal point, so I don't need to go too crazy on size on this. I think I will make those a little bit bigger, because I like to think too about how are people going to be visualizing this. So if this is going to be something somebody's going to be just picking up at an open house and looking at it, I want it to tell the story fairly quickly. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's make this a bit bigger. Okay, and then I also want to put something in here to just show that it's going up or down. So I've got a couple of options. I could use a triangle, because if you use a triangle and have it pointing up, clearly that means that the numbers are going up. Or if I flip it around and have it pointing down, which I did by grabbing the little dot at the top and adjusting that around like that. So you can have that go up and down. But you can also go up to your shapes and see all these other cool things that you can do, because you have these other arrows. I like these arrows. These arrows are kind of fun because you can really change the way that they appear. If you can see, there's a little yellow dot. That yellow dot will adjust how the head of this arrow looks. So you can pull it in to make it skinnier. You can pull it down to make the top larger. So you can just adjust that so until you get the one that you want.
That is awesome.
Yay. All right, and let's just say I'm going to put it right there. And sometimes when you're working with a lot of different things, you can see here that what happened was there was some text wrap that was automatically added to the shape. I like to get rid of all my text wrap and handle it manually. So I go up to wrap text and choose none, and then it just will adjust as needed. Okay, so let's say that that's my final infographic for my active listings, and then I might do pending listings, sold listings, median sales price, and days on market, in which case I'd do my same little icon. And I've got a final one that I've done, so pretend like, you know, I just baked a cake and I'm just pulling it out of the oven now. So here's what a final version of that could look like. And in this case, I used rounded rectangles and I had them teal as opposed to the orange, but you know, it's the same type of thing. And now what's cool is that now you've got your template. You can just go ahead and reuse that template time and time again, and you're not having to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to get new icons every time you do this. Just buy one sheet and call it good, and then have that be your template. Okay, so there's your print version on that, and that would probably be something you're either going to save to a PDF or you're just going to go ahead and print it. So, okay, that was certainly a lot of information. So let's see, I've got 38 chats, which I don't think I'm going to be able to see because oh, here we go. Haha, I can see it this time. Why is that? I wonder why. Okay, let me answer a couple questions. June, you usually talk about us using Publisher with our brand. What about transferring graphics to Canva and using that? There are several of our clients who are using Canva. We have not been, we have created one person's things in Canva, and that seems to be working out pretty well. We've got somebody else who's using LucidPress. So it depends on your particular preferences and how you're using graphics, things like that. But yeah, Canva would work fine. Yeah, and it looks like a couple of you guys are using it. That works out pretty nicely. Okay, let's see what else. Did you create the box first? Tara, did I create the box? Like, I think I was probably working on this version here. I assigned the page size, and then I just drew a rectangle directly in there. Yeah, I could see that you guys have answered that question for her too. That's good. Yep. Does the JPEG file make the file big because it's cropped? Does the JPEG file make the file big because it's cropped? Let me, okay. When you say that something, it's more the number of pixels per inch, if I understand your question. So if you have something that is 72 pixels or dots per inch, then that means that for every inch, for every inch here, you would have 72 pixels within that. Let's even just say let's say it's 300. So if you have something that's 300 pixels per inch, that's going to have a lot stronger resolution than something that's 72 pixels per inch. Okay, so just it's hard to imagine. But when you're saving it as something for the web, whatever the browser setting in is going to dictate. It's going to dictate how that image is conveyed. So it's the default for online is it's going to show you things at 72 dots per inch. So it doesn't really matter how many inches I have set my graphic here. It's how many pixels wide and tall it is, and that's how it figures out how to put it in there. And that it's a really complex thing, but I don't even know if I answered that question correctly. But it's yeah, it's all based on your pixels, your pixel dimension. Okay. Sean, I don't have the format tab on my version of Publisher. Is this an add-on? It's not. So Teresa, if you click, whatever you're clicking on are the different things that will show up here at the top. Okay. So this is called your ribbon. They call it ribbon. And if you don't have anything clicked, nothing is going to show up here in terms of your format. But if I click on like this image, then I have the format tab pop up because it says, oh, we think you want to do something with this photo. Let's talk about how to format that. Okay, and Randy looks like he's answered that too. Okay. Okay. Awesome, guys. Any other questions?
Shauna, I've got a real quick question. So across the top of the tabs, can you just touch on that format, that paint fill to grab your color one last time?
You bet, of course. Okay, so here we go. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna get rid of my chat window here. Okay, so if I have this like a graphic selected, I'm just gonna move this out of the way just for the heck of it, just so we can zoom in. All right, I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger. All right, so if I've got this graphic selected, then, and I go up to format, there's a couple of different things that I can do with this particular image. Of course, I can crop it. I wanted to show you one other thing. I'll come back to this, remind me in a second. So you can crop it, you can rotate it, move it to the forward, move it forward, send it to the back. You can add a picture border if you wanted to. You can do some picture effects like shadows and things like that. But what I was doing was I just had changed the color of this. So let me reinsert that and show you again. But before I do that, I wanted to show you something really cool. So once I've cropped this whole sheet, right? If I go to crop, I have all these other images waiting for me in the background. So all I need to do is move over my background graphic and look at that. I have a whole new graphic. And you've got to kind of click away from it when you move things over. So that is a little bit of a pain because you might have to zoom out. but you might be able to see you've got a shadow of everything else that's back here. So now I've got a new image in there and I didn't even have to like reinsert anything. So that was cool. But in this case, let me go ahead and get rid of that. And I'm going to show you that import one more time. So I've inserted my picture. Actually, I'm gonna just change them all here just for the heck of it, because that way you can see that this changes too. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is choose recolor, and I'm going to set my transparent color. So now everything is white. I do have a faint outline around the outside, but I'm going to leave that for now. And then to recolor, I'm going to just change this to more variations, and I can change it to white. I can change it to purple if I wanted to. But again, that's where you're going to need to change, get rid of your brightness on that, so that way it's not adding any white into that. You're going to just go to picture color options, switch your brightness to 0, and then you've got a really true saturated color there. Lisa, did that help?
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. I was talking about, you know, when you take your own personal branding color, like, do you have to be in the picture itself before the tab will pop up to where you can choose that option, you know, where you can get the little filler and pull the paint color from that?
Okay, so yes, you would need to do that, because let's just do that real quick. Let me just insert something. Actually, let's just pretend this is a logo, okay?
Okay.
I'm just going to pretend that that's something. All right, so if I wanted to change, let's say I wanted to change this graphic to this green, and this green is not something that I have in my menu. And you can do this with any of your brand. You can throw your logo in here. You can do whatever.
Okay.
Choose recolor, and then you're going to choose more variation. Oh. More colors. Oh, wait a second. I have to do it another way first. Okay, so I've got to change, I've got to actually get it in here another way. So in this case, you go to shape fill. Yeah, shape fill.
Okay.
And then you're going to sample your color, and this is just to get that color in the menu.
Yeah, no, that answers it right there. So
okay.
Shape fill. Yep, thank you.
And then you should be able to, there it is, select it. Oh, that's terrible.
Thanks, Shauna.
You bet. Okay, guys, any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
How much was the page of images that you purchased? And is iStock, can you buy individual pages, or do you have to have a subscription?
So you can buy credits essentially. So in this case, this was just a single credit, and in general, depending on how many credits you buy, the credits are usually about $10 a piece. So this whole page of icons would have been around $10.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's cheap.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. And I usually buy, well, here's a company. We usually buy about 25 images at a time, and then it takes us, well, we have a couple different stock photo sources. This and Shutterstock are the ones that we use primarily, and we just buy a bank and we go through them and just replenish them. But yeah, you can buy as few as like 3 credits, I think, on iStock.
Okay, great, thanks.
You bet. Okay, guys, anything else?
Quick question. It's Kristen. Yeah. Hey, can you tell me what the font was that was on the open house, that document you created for the open house, the infographic publisher file?
This one?
Yeah.
This is Aramis Light.
Thank you.
It's a good one, isn't it?
I like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Thanks.
You bet. Okay, guys. Well, I think that we're good then. So
Thank you, Shauna.
thank you guys so much for joining me. Have a great rest of your week.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.